books, The Road to Mecca, is currently on stage at Cape Town's Fugard Theatre. The play boasts a star-studded cast with theatre icons such as Sandra Prinsloo, Marius Weyers and the acclaimed Emily Child. Fugard, a world-renowned playwright, turns 86 this year.
The Fugard Theatre, home to some of the best stage productions in the business. The acclaimed play, The Road to Mecca, is in honour of Fugard's birthday. It is inspired by artist Helen Martins, who lived in the small Karoo town of New Bethesda and created the now famous The Owl House.
The story is about the character Helen, who is an older woman living in her house, and she's visited by Elsa, a young friend of hers. And Elsa comes because Helen's written quite a dark letter, sort of saying she's really struggling emotionally and she's afraid, and they want to take her house. And so Elsa comes racing through to come see what's going on, to discover that the Marius, who's the third character in the play, is wanting to send Helen to an old age home. So the play is one evening in this house. These three people come together, and I mean, not to undersell it, all hell breaks loose, and they argue over the fate of Helen, who just wants to be understood at the end of the day.
That's right.
This story of a woman's desire for personal and artistic freedom is brilliantly portrayed by Sandra Prinsloo, who is cast in the lead role of Miss Helen.
She was an extraordinary creature, a very lonely creature, very much sort of ostracized by the village, or everybody thought she was mad. But in fact, she was creating a place for herself where she could be liked, where she could be happy, where she could find perfection in a way, you know, in a life that was before quite dull. In the play, she feels that she's losing her creativity, and she's plagued by depression, and she feels that she's never going to be able to create again, and this terrifies her because for her, her only reason for being alive is actually her Mecca, as she calls. She created all these camels and wise men travelling to the east.
Set in the early 70s, the play takes place within the narrow confines of a conservative and highly religious community in the Karoo.
I'm playing the local dominee, and he's been in New Bethesda for the last 20 years. And he's known Helen for the last 20 years, and a very close friend of hers. And she's about the only person that he can really relate to and open his heart whenever he needs to. And then, unfortunately, 15 years ago, Helen turned her back on the church, her faith, and that was quite a blow to Bielefeld. And the last couple of weeks, she almost burned the house down through an accident. And he was trying now to get her to move to an old age home for her own safety, he believes. But in the process, he's really manipulating her and trying to control her, which doesn't work well with Helen. And that makes for this very fateful night when he... it's almost a battle with a young woman, Elsa, for the soul of Helen.
Emily Child plays the role of Helen's friend, Elsa Barlow.
Elsa is a very feisty, politically aware English teacher. In 1974, she's very sure of herself. She tries very hard to convince Helen to be as sure as herself as she is. She's not as open to her emotions, I think, as Miss Helen is. Deep down, she's desperately vulnerable and having a really hard time, but she hides it, and she hides behind politics, and she hides behind the world and behind her own anger. So she's super, super fun and exciting to play because she's very unpredictable, and we never know what she's going to do. She's constantly changing and shifting in the space.
For theatregoers, it's a joy to watch celebrated and seasoned actors such as Prinsloo and Weyers working on stage together again.
Marius and I have worked together for so many years. It's wonderful. It's like, we always say it's like riding a bicycle, you know. We trust each other completely. We know each other. It's just so easy because you don't have to get to know somebody. But then on the other hand, I'm working with Emily Child for the first time, and it's just absolutely extraordinarily wonderful working with her too. We are a wonderful, I think, a very close-knit cast with our director, Greg. So it's just been a fantastic experience.
The Road to Mecca, a not-to-be-missed production, will run at the Fugard Theatre for a limited season only. Linky Bierman, SABC News, Cape Town.